Fantastic. Mr. Ibrahim, I leave it to you. We 7 minutes in, and
Right.
let's see how far we go. And it's in your hand.
Well,
Whoever's in is in, and we can start, Mr. Ibrahim. Thank you.
okay, just to round off this part of it, on picture, I have two handsome gentlemen. I have Mr. Chaile Makaleng and I have Mr. Mandlam Tembo. And of course, I'm not on picture yet. But anyway, we'll carry on. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ibrahim Sidat, who's moderating this very significant, relevant, and meaningful panel discussion on the state of our education in these times. Our hosts, of course, are the organizers of the event, Regent Business School, on behalf of the Association of Muslim Schools. I want to welcome you and a very good morning to the panelists firstly, and to the people for whom this has really been engineered, the more than 70 middle managers who are investigating leadership as it is in these times. So without further ado, firstly, let me have the pleasure of introducing the panelists. Mr. William Bester has been in education for a long time, more than 30 years. And the interesting thing is all in the Waldorf education environment. He's since 2023, the National Coordinator of Southern African Federation of Waldorf Schools and a member of NAISA for many years and currently the chairman of NAISA. Hello, Mr. Bester. We have also Mr. Neil Malheba, who has taught and served in leadership roles at many schools in South Africa. He's currently the National Director of Association of Christian Schools International, South Africa. And we have Mr. Chaile Makaleng, who is currently the Head of Schools Compliance and Regulation of the Advitech Group. He's a current member of the Council of ISASA. And I recall Mr. Makaleng from when he was senior manager at Umalusi and really the driver and the pilot of what we know today as accreditation of independent schools. Hello, Mr. Makaleng. We also have Mr. Mandlam Tembo, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Accelerated Education Enterprises and Deputy Chairman of NAISA. I myself, as I said, I am Ibrahim Sidat. It is my pleasure, it is my honor to be in such a vast company. I am the Chief Education Strategist for the South African wing of the Turkish Marif Foundation. Thank you so much. So as Mr. Hussein would say, let's dive in. I hope you are kitted out. I'm sure you always are. Well, in the first place, this event, I think, is a visionary succession planning by the Association of Muslim Schools. The outcomes of today's deliberations are, in the first place, to apply adaptive leadership principles to address real-world challenges in schools. Secondly, to differentiate between operational management and strategic leadership, to demonstrate practical tools for leading diverse, multi-generational teams, and to use effective strategies to manage, change, and motivate staff in times of uncertainty. Now, that's a fair mouthful, but I'm sure with all the knowledge we have assembled among the panelists, we will unpack them successfully. The overarching theme of today's program is adaptive leadership in a changing context. At the outset, I would like to explore the two operative themes in this planning by Regent Business School on behalf of AMPS. And the two are adaptive leadership and challenging contexts. I think that's essentially our brief. Immediately, I would like to bet off and clarify some essential related concepts. For example, what is the difference between management and leadership? Let me turn to my panelists. Would you like to kick that off, Mr. Mtembu?
Management and leadership. Very, very, very interesting. I just want to first start by greeting everybody and just thank you that you have been able to invite us to participate in this discussion, because I believe that it is by engaging practitioners and those who are in the field to acquire practical knowledge of the sector itself. But in diving into the whole concept of management and leadership, I want to think that the first aspect that we need to look at is the issue of focus. What does management focus on and what does leadership focus on? And usually we find that management, when it comes to managing, for example, education in particular, management will deal with issues of planning, issues of controlling, issues of organizing, and also putting in place processes that you use to achieve specific goals and objectives in a given setting. That is the first thing I want to say in terms of focus. And whereas, on the other hand, leadership seems to be almost much broader in that it looks at the vision. It's about inspiring, it's about guiding, it's about how you go about influencing people to come along with you towards a shared vision and a shared purpose. So the other one is to do with planning and the actual sort of execution of that which needs to be done in terms of objectives. But also, maybe we can look at the issue of what is the main aim that each one of these particular sections in any given entity are. You see, leadership is about making sure that the change that it sees in as far as its vision is concerned happens. So it will bring about strategies for growth and even an innovation, whereas management side will be about executing those, where there's a need for order and stability and making sure that you've got processes and systems which are in place. I will stop there and give others a chance to dive in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Makaleng, who's in picture.
Once again, good morning, everyone, and I'd like to reiterate Mandla's appreciation for you having invited us to participate in this important discussion. And perhaps before one delves even deeper into the discussion, one has to clarify that my specific participation in this discussion is in my personal capacity. I will not necessarily be speaking on behalf of my employer, mainly because the issues that we're going to be addressing are of critical importance to the education system as a whole, and not specifically to a particular group of schools. Okay, with that out of the way, I do not intend to waste time by reiterating the valid points that Mandla has made, except to add one or two points. By the way, Mr. Sidat, your point about the two gentlemen being handsome. In my case, I would like you to please speak to my partner. I'm sure she will have a better perspective about how I look going forward. I would appreciate that. If it means I must arrange for you to come and meet her, so be it. Anyway, On a serious note, though, my view in regard to the two concepts is that they are, if you wish, two sides of the same coin, right? In that organizations of whatever type, of whatever form, exist for a particular purpose, right? And that purpose is oftentimes articulated by leadership, right? In clarifying what the goals are, in clarifying what is it that we are about as an organization, right? And then, of course, in formulating a framework that's intended for us as an organization to achieve that which binds us together, so to speak, right? So in other words, they look at the big picture in terms of this is who we are as an organization, this is who we are as an entity, right? This is what we intend to achieve as an entity in order for us to continue to exist as an entity, because that's one thing in establishing that entity. And it's quite another, and of course we'll get into this discussion later. It's one thing to establish this entity, this organization, right? It's quite another to ensure that this organization, this entity, it's sustainable or continues to meet its objectives, even under circumstances of difficulty, of challenges, and all of that. So all of that I've been saying so far relates to, as Mandla put it, the focus that confronts leadership, right? But then again, you need to execute all of these ideas. You need to make sure that these resources that we've set aside as leadership are put to good use in order for us to achieve that which we have to achieve. That's where management comes in, right? As in, okay, now we understand what the vision is. We understand where we have to go as an entity, right? What is it that we have to do in terms of the nuts and bolts, if you wish, right? In terms of utilization of resources, that's in human resources, financial resources, and all of that. Which is why I'm saying I see the two concepts as two sides of the same coin, in that one cannot do without the other. That's basically my point. And each entity, each organization, no matter the type, needs both, in my view. Perhaps let me stop at that point. Thanks. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Sidat, I just want to let you know Mr. Bester has joined.
I noticed.
I
Thank
may
you.
have sent
Welcome,
him the
Mr.
wrong
Bester.
link, so he's on.
Special welcome to Mr. Bester, who is the chairman of the NISA. We're happy to have you, sir. And before we launch Mr. Bester into the fray, I just want to observe on the excellent input by the two panels so far to clarify the difference between leadership and management. I can recall early in my experience that Warren Bennis, about 50 years ago, said something about a manager concerns himself with the status quo, whereas a leader engages with the status quo and challenges it and thinks up in a visionary way what will benefit his organization. In our case, schools. So I think the interplay between the two, as Mr. Makaleng said, is vital. One cannot do without the other. Whereas the visionary is in the leader, the delivery and implementation is the responsibility of the manager. And that will ensure good order and good progress towards the attainment of that vision. So let's welcome Mr. Bester. Hello, Mr. Bester. We're happy that you are in our midst with your vast knowledge. Mr. Bester, would you agree with me that in any organization, in our case, we're talking about schools. In our schools, in any school, are there levels of or a hierarchy of leadership, or is it all vested in a singular entity, a person? What do you say, Mr. Bester?
Good morning, Mr. Sadat, and people on the call. Thank you for inviting me to be here. And it seems like I had the wrong link, so I apologize for that. Yes, I think that certainly in my organization, we try to keep a very flat structure in management, because I think that in terms of world leadership, collaborative leadership is much more appropriate. However, having said that, the buck always has to stop somewhere. So I think that any modern leader will have teams of people around him working, or her, and supporting them and supporting the vision of the organization. I think it's more and more important to have an integration and an understanding that everybody is part of the vision and the future drive and ethos of the organization. I think levels of responsibility change according to your position, but I think that certainly the days of a totally hierarchical leadership in a school situation is past.
Well said, Mr. Bester. I love what you say about the integration among leaders and the cooperative environment that is established so that it's all vision towards a common goal. I think if it's hierarchical, then one would think of a leader at the macro level who is overall the thinker and the visionary for the organization or for the school. And then, as schools are and as they need to be, there are the middle managers, which is the meso level of leadership, your deputies and your heads of department, who are really the people of the moment. And of course, there is the micro level of the staff, of the educators who man classrooms. I think they are also very much part of the leadership, because a commonness of understanding of vision and purpose is necessary from the top to the bottom. And I think that whilst each of these levels seeks to deliver the main drive towards what the leader has envisioned, I think their own views, their own philosophies, their own wishes, and their own aspirations have place as well. Now, for example, the teacher in the classroom will be delivering a vision that the leader has. If it's inculcation of critical thinking and flipped learning in our classrooms, fine. The teacher in the classroom has a responsibility, but there is need for his own thinking, his own wishes as an educator, and there is room for that. So there is a hierarchical structure, but as Mr. Bester has said, one needs to integrate all of these levels, and one has to ensure that there is cooperation and collaboration among the various levels to attain what is best for the institution. So thank you very much for that. I'd also like to inquire into the changing contexts in which we find ourselves. Is Mr. Malherbe with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Malherbe, hello, Mr. Malherbe. Welcome, sir. I think I can call you rightfully Mr. Waldorf.
No, that's Mr. Bester.
Sorry, Mr. Bester. You see, I'm just befuddled by the glitter of our panelists. Hello, Mr. Malherbe from Associated Christian Schools International, long-time service, and welcome. We look to learn from you, sir. In your understanding, the current scenario in education, what do you think the main changing contexts that we find ourselves in currently?
Thanks very much. And I was intrigued to think about this context of adaptive leadership, because I think if I look at Mandla and William, we have certainly been there's a youngster like Chaile he hasn't been through as much adaptation as we've had to go through over the years of our involvement with education. But I just wanted to commend everybody who's been part of this course, because I think all of those on the panel will agree that what South Africa really needs right now is leaders in education. And despite the fact that those who are on the course might be in middle management now, I just trust that middle management is going to grow into top management and top leadership, if I can also distinguish between the management and leadership from earlier.
That expressed wish, sir, is very much the reason for this momentous event taking place. It's a visionary succession planning strategy, I think, and I want to congratulate the Association of Muslim Schools for this, because the 70 people and more who are listening to us with intent have very much that vision and that aspiration, and we wish them well. So go on, Mr. Bester.
I would say that you're asking about the context that we find ourselves in.
Yes.
And William, a moment ago, mentioned the fact that the hierarchical structure that probably we grew up with is no longer the case in most of our schools. And so the challenge for that is in the sort of postmodernist world that we find ourselves at the moment, where everybody has his or her own version of the truth and how they want to see the world. I think the challenge in a leadership position is to be able to be aware of what one finds in the broader context of the world and in South Africa as we find ourselves at the moment, but at the same time to be adaptive and open to, firstly, what does the school stand for, and stand firmly for what the school stands for, and realize that as teachers and parents come into that environment, they need to know very clearly what does the school stand for, because I think that empowers the leaders of the school.
I'm sorry, Mr. Malherbe. Sorry, Mr. Malherbe. Can the others switch off their mics? So only Mr. Malherbe's got his mic. We're getting an echo there. Sorry about that. Sorry, Mr. Malherbe.
Let's try that again, and hopefully the echo doesn't go through. So I think if a school is very firm on what it stands for, and that parents and teachers who are coming to that school know what the school stands for, then I think it empowers the leaders of that school to know that they have a scaffolding around them that can actually help them to stand for what the school's vision is. Because I think at the moment, many of our schools have been caught up in, as I said a moment ago, this postmodernist vision of, well, everybody's truth is valid and therefore anybody can have an opinion. And I think that in terms of the leadership of a school, we can empower the middle leaders, as we see on the webinar today, to be able to stand for what the school stands for, because they know that they have the backing of the school.
Well said, Mr. Malherbe. I was very intrigued by your looking over your shoulder and recalling the way it used to be in the early days of our experience in education. That you are here today, sir, is affirmation of your being an adaptive leader, because from that background, you've come to where you are with highly pertinent and very beneficial input on this matter, which is crucial to education and educators in these times. I think we ourselves find that the current education scenario is a very vibrant scenario. So much is happening that we have launched ourselves into 21st century learning, learning skills. I think most schools have done this very successfully. We are definitely in a post-apartheid era in South Africa, and change is slow in coming, and there's much to do. There is still very much more to do, and it will take adaptive leadership and good vision to address the challenges and the needs of formerly disadvantaged people in particular. I think the entry of AI into the education world is something that is a burning question, and we have to address it too. So with that, I think Mr. Mtembo wanted to make an input. Mr. Mtembo?
Thank you, Thank you very much, Mrs. Sidat. I'm just there are some of the points that Neil made, which just triggered also other things in my thinking, given where one has been over the years. And the fact that when you look at school leadership, I would say adaptive leadership right now, it's not just about managing the school and the processes, but it also deals with also having to mobilize people, being able to engage people. And it does require that one is to learn and even unlearn. For us, for example, who come from the 70s and the 80s, you look and you realize that there are so many things which have been changed by technology, as you said earlier on, Mr. Sidat, that we are in an age where if you're a leader, you've got no other choice but to look at how do you change in order to stay in place. Because if you do not adapt and change, you're going to end up becoming like Nokia. Where is Nokia today? Because they failed to adapt with the changing terrain of communications. Thank you very much.
Let that not be said about independent schools in South Africa. Thank you. We don't want to be, another Nokia. I think very much. Let's take the example of artificial intelligence. Not only in education but in the general world in South Africa, we found artificial intelligence descend upon us with bewildering speed. It's data that's been churned out, and the questions are many. The pace of it all is that, interestingly, in 2 years, 600 million went on to ChatGPT in just 2 years. Now, that's an indication of the urgency for decisions, let's say, in our independent school sector. Leaders, for example, have to make the decision, do we embrace artificial intelligence, or I like to say artificial augmentation, in our institutions, in our schools, in our associations? The reality about artificial intelligence is that research shows that there are people who are totally ignorant about AI, even in these times. There are people who are skeptical about it. There are people who know a little to the point of being dangerous knowledge because it's not adequate. And there are those who are fundis, and we salute them. They have been forerunners in this pressing need. But we'll come to that a little later. So what does it mean to be an adaptive leader? I think you've covered that very well already. I just want to make the point, if you'd like to comment, it'll be interesting, that a leader leads from the front and is visionary. A leader leads from the front and is visionary. Then you get leaders who are coaching leaders. It's part of the responsibility of leadership that you stand on the side, not in the front, and you direct without intruding. And then also there's a leader or an element of the responsibilities of leadership, especially adaptive leadership, where the leader does this from the back because he has confidence in where the school is heading. And so from the back, then he observes to allow others to lead. Believing, as I said, that the team is capable to own the mission which he had envisaged. That leader trusts their leadership and will allow them to aspire even higher. Any comments on those? What the responsibilities of an adaptive leader are?
Yeah, I do. I do have some comments on that, Mrs. Sidat. I want to think that when we talk about adaptive leadership, one of the things that are very, very, very important for us to look at is the whole question of what is adaptive about adaptive leadership.
Good.
At Tumalusi, some years back when I was working there as senior manager, we used to ask the question, what is general about general education? Because sometimes we use terms without much insight about what we are actually meaning. But let me just dive into it, because I believe that when we speak about adaptive leadership, we are speaking about the ability of the leaders and the organization itself to adjust, to learn, and to thrive in a changing environment or uncertain or complex circumstances, so that at least it's able to make sure that it becomes relevant, not just to manage processes, okay? It calls for distinguishing between the technical problems, that is, are things that you need to solve by using your expertise, your knowledge, your experience, from adaptive ones, which will require you to learn, to dialogue, engage people, and share responsibility. There are three pillars of independent education in South Africa that we share when we speak about NAISA, for example, which is number one, it is about providing what we term quality education. That's number one. Number two, we always say that it is about values and character, making sure that the education that you provide encompasses values and character, and the issues that inform your belief system as a school. For example, in a school like a Muslim school, you'd want to make sure that you inculcate those values which you subscribe to in terms of the faith that you hold, which is very, very important, and your right to do so in this country. The other one has to do with a distinctive mission, which again also talks to philosophy, talks to faith, etc., etc. So if you're an adaptive leader in such a circumstance, you will find yourself having to dialogue with people and share with people what your vision is. So that is very, very important to actually master and to know about adaptive leadership. Thank you very much.
So. I think more than anybody in a school environment or in any organization, the leader has to know that change is constant.
There you are.
And has to be, in the forefront of meeting the challenges and taking them forward. Very often, I like the slogan of Regent Business School, to disrupt, to rethink, and to innovate, because that's really what a leader does. I want to explore in greater detail, but I think you've already done this, team. I commend you for that. In talking about leadership thus far, you have said enough and much, I think, about the difference between strategic leadership and operational leadership, or strategic planning and operational planning. And I think the best person amongst us for this will be Mr. Chaile Makaleng himself, who was in the driving seat when accreditation of schools, independent schools, was born. And this was very much, this difference was very much at the heart of the whole process, that we need to have strategic planning and operational planning. Mr. Makaleng, a quick word from you, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Sidat. Yeah, just a quick one. But nothing that you mentioned accreditation. I think the panelists and everyone that's on this call would recall that about, let's say, 15 years ago, this concept called accreditation, certainly in the extent to which it is implemented, was not prevalent in this country. So back then, we had, as part of Umalusi, had to figure out, one, leadership had to figure out what the best way would be to introduce this instrument, obviously within the legal framework of Umalusi. But of course, I do not want to speak for Umalusi at the moment because I might misrepresent them. But the point to make there is that, and which is the point I think you're highlighting, is that the country, the education system had to adapt in view of this instrument, this quality assurance instrument, right? And there had to be leadership in terms of perceptions, in terms of what it's likely to work, what may not work. That's on the one side. On the other side, though, how do we implement this? How do we implement this new system in this country? Yes, it was implemented for decades elsewhere. But how do we implement in this country, within the context of this country? Which context is that? Different associations of independent schools, for instance, had their own way of quality assuring education within their own spaces, and that worked very well. Now, this then being accreditation, in some circles, whether for good reasons or bad reasons, was seen as a disruptor. But anyway, enough about that. The last point, Mr. Sidat, that I wanted to make with regard to adaptive leadership is this. In my view, while we may think about change every time we speak about this model of leadership, my view is that an adaptive leader would, of course, think about change, but also would not compromise that which works. I'll give you an example. One of the challenges that we have, and by we, I'm referring to everyone on this call, it's that as institutions of learning, we have to be seen to be safeguarding and protecting children. And the Children's Act defines a child as anyone under the age of 18, right? Now, my point is this, that yes, it is quite helpful for us to engage, to discuss, to share views around models of leadership, but we should not lose sight, in my view, of that which it's core to who we are as schools, to who we are as the education system. And that is that, as I said, one of those important considerations is that we are obliged as adults to safeguard the interests of children, to protect children. Put simply, you and I have a duty of care for children. Anything else, in my view, it's with respect, secondary, right? Because if we fail in that respect, whether as leaders, as managers, then we have a huge problem, in my view. So just to close this point off, I'm saying it is important for us to talk about this model of leadership. It is important for us to be mindful of the ever-changing context in which we operate our schools, right? But what we should never lose sight of, it's our key obligation, and that is that we're entrusted with a huge responsibility. And that huge responsibility is to take care of children within the context of our schools, to protect children within the context of schools. You and I know and are following social media in terms of what's happening to our children, right? So it is, in my view, a challenge for this model of leadership and management, by the way, to ensure that we optimize all measures that are intended to safeguard the interest of children. In other words, everything that we do, so says the Constitution, has got to be in the best interest of.
I think I'd like to just underscore that everything that we envision, everything that we do in our respective institutions and associations is for the children. Interestingly, a recent curriculum development session that I delivered, I commenced with the observation, in the words of a child, we grow through what we go through. Okay, I'll repeat that. We grow through what we go through. And it's the school leadership and the school personnel who take them through that journey. And therefore, there's a responsibility. Ultimately, of course, the whole process, as Mr. Makalang has said, about accreditation is to ensure that children's rights are protected and all efforts are funneled towards the principles of the Constitution of our beautiful country, because these rights are all enshrined in those very, very crucial edicts. I want to lead on to the next question. There was again going to be some deliberation on this, but we've been doing very well. I think you have been preempting my moderation. I just want to ask you, without going into elaboration and detail at this stage, just topically, would you kindly indicate what you consider to be the most pressing challenges facing independent schools, private schools in South Africa today? So can we get a quick statement as a topic of a challenge, a burning issue? This has to happen, and this is what we should be focusing on. This is where we need to bring out our adaptive leadership skills. Otherwise, the ship is going to sink. So firstly, could I ask Mr. Malherba to indicate an area that he considers a vitally important challenge for independent schools?
Thanks, Mr. Sidat. Maybe I should just ask, I see William has got his hand up, and so maybe I'll defer to William to make his point first.
Sorry, William, I didn't notice that. It was just a handsome face in picture. I didn't see the hand. Thank you.
No problem. Mr. Sidat, I wanted to just, I really love the quote that you gave, and I think what the point I wanted to make is with the challenge of AI, and it's something that I think we're at the tipping point in the world where there's a point of no return, and we have to adapt our learning practices and management practices to include AI. I wanted to just make the point we should, and I think Chahile also referred to that, is we mustn't forget that we have young human beings in our care. And I think what is vitally important, if we talk about adaptive leadership, is that while we integrate the world changes, and we integrate all that, to really remember that of vital importance to us. And for me, that would be a critical challenge and opportunity in the independent school sector, opportunity of differentiation, is to really concentrate also on the human skills of creativity, intuition, communication skills, empathy, self-motivation, and moral responsibility. Because I think if we want to educate young, balanced human beings who can really contribute sensibly to society, then I think those human skills are going to be the, and you know, if one talks about the 2035 competencies, that is really going to be a very important place of development for our students.
I love that, Mr. Bester. I think, you know, it's very important for us to concede with humility that in many ways, education, more than other environments in our country, in the world, was left in the backwash. We were slow out of the blocks, and we have to make up for time. You know, as I said earlier, AI showed itself with the blinding speed of churning out data. And, you know, we had to ask the question and make a decision. Are we going to embrace artificial intelligence in our system, in our schools? The realization is always there that whereas the artificial intelligence as technology, and remember, technology, the artificial intelligence, whatever it be, has been set up by people who have their own thinking and their own outlooks, which might not be in sync with what we are thinking. So there is a very essential need, if we are embracing that, we will definitely be embracing artificial intelligence, I would say, that we give attention to the human element of education, the humanness of what we are seeking to attain, that, you know, that there has to be engendered in the learners, you know, in our environment, in our classrooms, the values, the empathy, the emotional intelligence, and all that constitutes the humanness of the learner. I think that is very important. I think artificial intelligence has also realized that and moves afoot now to address that very important challenge. So that is very important, keeping in mind that connecting with what Mr. Makaleng said earlier, learning is not a product. It's a process. And if Mr. Makaleng has said it so often with thorough conviction that we need to protect the needs and the rights of children. So it's a process leading to that. Thank you so much, Mr. Bester.
Mr. Sadat, can I just add one thought to finish my process there? Sorry. Sure. I think that, you know, linked to that, one of the massive challenges we have in independent education, and links back to the accreditation, is that somehow the less education works in the world, the more controlling and prescriptive governments are becoming about education. And that does interfere with developing these other competencies. And, you know, the curriculum issue in our country of compliance solely with CAPS, and we all support quality education, there's no question about it. But it is a very narrow scope. And for those of us in associations like AEE and Montessori and Waldorf, the prescription to follow specific content is problematic. And I think more and more in the world with AI, we're going to have to move away from content, and we're going to have to move towards developing competencies. Excellent. So I think that is an incredibly important challenge for us, and that's exacerbated, of course, by legislative overreach in terms of registration issues, reducing subsidies, prescriptive qualifications for teachers, all sorts of things has a huge impact on our ability to follow our specific approach. And that's not to say we don't support quality and high standard. That's the two go hand in hand. We absolutely support quality education in every respect.
I like very much your input there, that there's a need for a shift away from content to competence. And I think that's very much what is the need of the times. I think it's brought into focus something that we've known for a long time, but haven't really given its due importance and significance. This is the difference between behaviorism and constructivism. That, younger children, especially some say, must be, according to Vygotsky's philosophies, for example, be taught at their level and to be mindful always of a proximal zone of development for younger. But I think even the younger children, even in at the foundation phase, have a capacity for their level, depending on how it's approached, to move away from content to competence, away from behaviorism to constructivism. And you ask children in grade 1 a question that is of a higher level, and you'll see the hands shoot up. Every child has something to say, provided given the opportunity. So thank you, Mr. Bester. Mr. Malherbe, any further thoughts on what you think are areas, burning questions to be addressed?
No, I think Mr. Bester has touched on some of the biggest issues. I think probably one of the biggest in South Africa is this misperception that independent schools are only those for the wealthy. And we serve many communities and many schools that are incredibly deprived. And so I think in the ever-shifting sands of our relationship with organizations such as SACE or Malusi, the DBE, I think any leader needs to be very adaptive, and you need to have great flexibility to try and keep up with everything that is happening, and with the, as I say, with the misperception that independent schools are wealthy schools. And so I encourage these middle leaders who are coming through our schools, who are here today, to realize that they're stepping into something of a quagmire, and they need to be adaptive. Thanks,
Wonderful.
Mr. Sidat.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mr. Mtembu, quick word on what you think are identifiable and pressing issues facing education, especially independent schools in South Africa.
Yes, I mean, the first one for me, I'm just adding to what my colleagues have said. I agree with everything that has been said, and the points that William and Neil are pointing out. The first one for me has to do with the macroeconomic pressures on school fees and families. Many independent schools are experiencing strain because of high interest rates and inflation, unemployment, inability of parents to pay school fees. So they are finding hard to really make ends meet, especially those schools which are subsidized. That's a very big deal. And the fact that subsidies across all provinces have been reduced. Some provinces don't even get subsidies, So this is the first one. The second one is to do with issues of, I would say, governance, accreditation, regulation, and compliance issues, that independent schools need to strengthen their governance, teacher professional development, accreditation, and financial sustainability, which are issues that have been mentioned. Chayele spoke about accreditation also, which the issues he raises are very, very, very important, So weak governance and inadequate monitoring of financial increases and, of financial revenue, that in itself brings about a risk in the sustainability of schools, unless schools really pay attention to how they are making their money to continue doing what they do so well. The third point quickly is issue of value add. The perceptions that people may have about independent schools, whether do they really add value and relevance in raising our children for the real world. You know, this is a perception issue, which I think that needs to be addressed by every school that is independent out there, to make sure that what you do can translate to practical things that people see as benefits for them and their children. Lastly is the issues of inequality, access, and societal role. How do we make independent education, private education, accessible to mainly the previously disadvantaged population? That is very, very, very important. Thank you very much.
Well said. I think it's very important that independent schools in particular keep sharply in focus the shifting enrollments and demographics in our schools. These, I think, are driven by needs for quality education, perception being that this is available in independent schools, and tied up to that, I think very intimately, is the economic pressures, as has been mentioned, on people who have this aspiration but do not have the means to reach out for it and be where it is on offer. So these are great pressures, and as has been said, to narrow and indeed eliminate the compartmentalization of our population into this geopolitical groupings, I think. It's a long time. It doesn't happen in a day. I still think it's going to take a long time to do that. I just want to comment briefly. Time is running short. There are some essential principles of adaptive leadership. To be an adaptive leader, one has to acknowledge the importance of collaborative decision-making. No longer it is, listen to me and do the rest. I can remember when I started teaching, I presented myself to the principal, who handed me a sheet of paper, which was a timetable for me, and said, take this and go and do your thing. Don't ever come back to my office. But you want to be a collaborative decision. Nobody told me what the vision of the school was and what my responsibility was. I had to learn that. And like that, one has to have open and transparent communication. One needs to empower all people in the organization or the institution or in the school, and to be paid, that there is a shared accountability, that there is need for guidance and support. These are all not personally delivered, but planning for the responsibilities of the adaptive leader. And very essential, I think, the adaptive leader in his adaptive leadership has to make room for inclusivity. That there are people, there are young people, there are old people, there are people from different backgrounds. Make sure from different learning areas, there's need for everybody to contribute towards the leadership that is, and there has to be trust and mutual support. I think this is important, and this makes the emotional intelligence of the leader very important in his leadership style. That you understand people, you know what is it that makes them tick, and in your leadership, give expression to that. Very quickly, I just want to touch on the matter of people and culture in an organization and how this behoves an adaptive leader. We have about 2 or 3 minutes. Could we very quickly clarify what we mean, culture of a school? How do we view this? Mr. Makale?
Thanks, sir. The culture of a school, it's, in my view, hard to define, but generally speaking, it's our way of doing things as a community, right?
I love that.
the assumption is that we share a set of goals, right? And the assumption is that we buy into that set of goals, right? The assumption is further that we have a particular way of achieving those goals, right? So, which then become distinctive. In other words, this way of doing things within this organization, within this school, then become distinctive. Distinctive to the extent that we articulate that in the form of school ethos, for instance, right? Distinctive to the extent that we articulate that in the form of values, for instance, that yes, we would like to achieve X, Y, Z, but it's, how can I say, in order for us to achieve that which we have to achieve, there's a particular way in which we have to do that. That is why at times people would say, but it's not our way. This is not our culture. The challenge then is that leadership would have done enough work to ensure that that way it's inculcated in every single member of the team, such that you're not given a timetable in terms of your example, Mr. Sidat. You're not just given a timetable and asked to go out there and make things happen. Included in that instruction would be, by the way, this is who we are as an entity. This is who we are as an organization. These are our characteristics as an organization. And let's go out to achieve all of these things, mindful of these characteristics that bind us together, these characteristics on the basis of which we collaborate. Just one last point quickly.
Excellent. If I might just intrude, Mr. Makale, sorry about that.
No worries.
The administrators are badgering me. I just want to observe that, it's important, as you said, that it's not culture alone in the conditioned understanding of culture. We're not talking about people and their values in their private lives. It is to an extent, it is. A leader has to understand that. But culture, as you said so succinctly, is the way things are done in our school. There has to be a shared understanding of that. There has to be a clear vision of how things are done in this move towards the ultimate goal. And for that, there's so much to be done. It's important. Leadership has changed, for example, that one way of attaining that is that the leader himself, adaptive leader, will be prepared to roll up his sleeves and get into the fray with the team. That one has to empower everybody, that one has to show the behaviors, display the behaviors we expect of others, that, this is the way we are, this is the way we do things. I mean, there was a time when the morning for the leader started with coffee on table and newspaper in front of him. Now, today, you want your team to do something else. You have to display the same behavior. There must be open communication, and you must understand your team quite very, very well. I think responsibilities for an adaptive leader, I think, have to do with motivation and morale as well. I think that is supremely important. Don't be blind to the feelings and emotions of people. It's the responsibility. How that can be done, our team will give us volumes, I think, on how this can be done had we had time. Mr. Hussain, please take note. We need more time for this. Very quickly, I'm rounding off this now. Just a statement of a topic. If there are additional things, if you were to redesign one aspect of middle management in schools, which would that be? what would you expect of your middle managers to attain your vision, and you had to change something about the role function of a middle manager? What would that be? Something different from what it is today. Any thoughts?
I'm happy to jump in quickly. This quote is actually attributable to the 28th president of the US. It says, if you want to make enemies, try to change something. If you want to make enemies, try to change something. It does seem cynical, but my challenge to the middle managers is, please go out there and make enemies.
Change something, but ensure that peace will come at the end. That's it, sir, gentlemen. I wish we could go on. Thank you so much for your erudite inputs. It's been a learning experience for me as well, and for all in this lovely event. Thank you so much. Thank you to the host, and I wish you well. I hope we meet soon and continue this learning process. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.